Hey guys, my name is FunPro. So, Season 13 is coming up, and with the new season will be coming new items. So in this video, I'm just going to be reacting to some of the new items that are coming up. So I'm just going to give you my basic thoughts on these items. So starting off, we have the new item of Acacias Endurance. And this is going to be a mythic item, which will provide you 400 health, 30 armor, 30 magic resist, 20 ability haste, and has the passive Voidborn Resilience, where for each second in champion combat, you'll gain a stack granting 3 armor and magic resist up to 10 max. At max stacks, you'll become empowered, instantly draining enemies around you for 4% of your maximum HP to each enemy. And then for against minions and monsters, you'll be reduced to 1%. And then you're going to double your resist from stacks until the end of combat, and this will have a 60-second cooldown. And the mythic passive will grant all other legendary items 5 armor and magic resist. So, just looking at this item, my first thoughts are just, it feels good for tanks that like to be in the enemy's faces. So I guess like maybe you can build this item on like Udyr, Dr. Mundo, Maokai. But also there's the fact that the draining is based off max HP. So maybe if you have a champion that can build max HP really well, or build HP that really well, or have the ability to exponentially increase their HP, this might be a good choice. So more HP is equal to more drain. Now in terms of the base stats, you will be getting 520 effective HP for physical damage and 520 effective HP against magic damage. That includes the 400 health plus the 30 armor / magic resist. So the next item that we have on the list is Radiant Virtue, and this is going to be another mythic item. So 400 health, 30 armor, 30 magic resist, 20 ability haste, has a passive Guiding Light where when you cast your ultimate, you'll transcend, increasing your maximum health by 10% for 9 seconds. And while you're transcended, you and allies within 1200 range will gain 25 non-ultimate ability haste. You and your allies will also heal for 1.5% of your max HP every 3 seconds, increase up to the 100% based on that champion's missing health. Healing is redoubled on yourself, and this will have a 90-second cooldown. There's also the mythic passive that will grant all other legendary items 100 HP. So looking at this item, it feels like it's better for tanks that like to peel or peel tanks, and there's also like supportive aspects on this tank mythic as well, where you can heal your team, they gain ability haste, which is nice if you're like being a supportive tank, relatively hovering around your team, but also 1200 range is pretty big of a range. So Caitlyn's auto attack range is 650. 1200 is almost double that. It is a pretty big range in terms of how close you have to be to your ally, but it can't be that like your tank is off way far out into a team fight in the back line away from the rest of your team, because maybe then you might not be able to get the effects of this item. So just consider who you're building this on. So I'm thinking like maybe Ornn can get this item, you can have Maokai building this item, and Sejuani. You'll increase your max HP by 10%, and then there's also legendary items that give you the 100 health. So I'm just thinking maybe there's like a cool synergy with like Demonic Embrace, that people who build this item can also go Demonic Embrace and also do decent damage. Like, I mean, some of the champions I mentioned before, like Maokai, Sejuani, they have like AP based abilities, and this could work well with them. And the effective HP is the same as before, 520 against physical damage and 520 against magic damage. So now looking at the next tank mythic, which is Iceborn Gauntlet, it's going to be giving you 400 HP, 40 armor, 20 ability haste. Is the Spell Blade, where after using an ability, your next attack is enhanced with an additional 100% base AoE physical damage, and creates a frost field for 2.5 seconds. Enemies that move across this field are slowed by 15% plus 0.003% of your max HP. Your primary target is slowed for double the amount and has their damage against you reduced by 10% for 2.5 seconds, and the Spellblade passive is a 1.5 second cooldown, and the mythic passive will grant all the legendary items 50 health, 5% tenacity, and 5% slow resist. So this is a interesting mythic. I mean, we had Iceborn Gauntlet before, but now it's going to be considered a mythic item. In terms of the slow with the max HP % ratio, you might think it's a lot, because it says 15 plus 0.003%. I mean, that could be a pretty big slow. I mean, obviously it scales with max HP, but the max HP part is only referring to the 0.003%. And even if you have like 3000 HP, you're probably only getting like 0.09% extra. So even though you build a lot of HP, you are like getting like a little bit extra slow. That in itself doesn't feel that significant. I mean, it'll make a difference, sure, but it doesn't feel that powerful. But then here's the thing is where you'll have your slow amount doubled for your primary target. So I mean, that's gonna have a greater effect. And you will also take reduced damage from the enemy by 10% for 2.5 seconds. So I'm just thinking who could go this mythic. Champions, maybe like Darius could perhaps go it. I feel like Darius has like a bunch of stats that he would like from this item. I mean, he gets tenacity slow resist, he gains slows, has an AoE physical damage spellblade passive, which can help him wave clear a tiny bit. And the slows are nice for him to stay on target, and he gets HP and the armor. So I mean, this could be a Darius item. I don't know relative to the other items how they would fare, but so yeah, those are just like my thoughts on Iceborn Gauntlets. Now going on to the next tank mythic, which is Goliaths Ascendiary. So basically this item is going to give you 800 HP, 200% base health regeneration, and 20 ability haste. It has the passive Colossal Consumption where you can charge up a powerful attack against the champion over 3 seconds while within 600 range of them. And the charge attack drains the target, dealing 50 plus 10% of your max HP as bonus physical damage and healing you for that same amount. And you permanently gain max health equal to 15% of the drain, 30-second cooldown per target, and max health will be lost if the item is sold. Wow, okay. And then Mythic passive grants all other legendary items 1% increased health and 6% champion size. So I think first thing when I see this, I feel like Titanic Hydra users will like this, because I mean obviously that item does have health-based damage calculations. Technically you can also go this with Demonic Embrace as well. So champions with AP ratios that are also like generally tanks can also go this. Yeah, your Mythic passive gives some extra HP, champion size. Yeah, you grant all other legendary items 1% increased health and 6% champion size. So this is pretty interesting. I feel that Goliath just seems like a very offensive option. You do have a lot of HP to work with. I'm wondering who could build this. Is like Scion. I mean, he sometimes builds Titanic Hydra, so he might like this. 2 people to build Cho'Gath and Titanic Hydra, there's that as well. I guess like it's 80 Cho'Gath. I don't know how good that is, but I mean, it's a fruit for thought to have, I guess. And the cool thing is, like, since you get all this HP and it's also the health regeneration, which, well, you can like probably go a little bit more aggressive in terms of your play, more offensive, and like back off and be able to regen all the effects that you just went through, or like heal up your HP. So I mean, this is a pretty good tank mythic, I wanted to say. So I guess my overall thoughts for these tank mythics is that tank mythics are now seen more towards like defense and support. Goliath offers that offensive option. There is the supportive option in Radiance Virtue. Then there's Acacias Endurance, and then there's Iceborn Gauntlet coming back. So I feel like there's a lot of variety in terms of what you can build on tanks. But I also just feel like with these new tank mythics that tanks are just going to be like way more tankier than they probably were in the past. So like my question would be like, is tank meta back? I know there's other changes going on with the lanes, but I'm just focusing on this video on the items. So this is just like an interesting thing to think about. So let's go to Rod of Ages. So I know a lot of people are hyped up to see Rod of Ages come back. It is going to be a mythic item now compared to, I guess, just a normal item back then when it was still there. So Rod of Ages is going to give you 60 AP, 300 health, 300 mana. The item gains 20 health, 20 mana, and 4 ability power every minute, up to 10 times for a maximum of 200 health, 200 mana, and 40 ability power. Upon reaching max stacks, you'll gain a level. Now, note the level cap will remain at 18, okay? And then Mythic passive, you'll grant all other legendary items 5 ability haste. So this is very interesting. So, I mean, champions who like mana will like this item. Rod of Ages, I feel like champions who like mana, who like to use mana, who like to use a lot of abilities, Cassio, Rise, just to name a few. Your base is 60 AP, 300 health, and 300 mana. But then after 10 minutes, you'll be able to achieve 100 AP, 500 health, and 500 mana. And you also gain a level and additional health and mana, which correspond to when you get levels. You might be thinking, well, if it's going to give you a level, obviously it's going to get more value the later the game goes on, where the difference between each level or to get the next level requires a large amount of XP, which is true. But also don't forget that this thing will take 10 minutes to stack because it's every minute it stacks. So that's also something to consider about. So you could probably delay your mythic, but it also gives a lot of stats, and you also have to think about the 10 minutes, where maybe in 10 minutes from now, you'll probably need that power spike. So, I mean, I'm not saying rush this item or not buy this item until the last item. I think it just depends on the game and what the situation is in order for you to determine when to buy it. But yeah, I mean, I could see a world where you could delay the mythic as like a second purchase, or just buying components and then stalling it out, or buying boots first and then rushing into mythic. There's like a whole lot of variations that you could run where you could delay your mythic for Rod of Ages. And then there's also the ability haste, which is a nice touch from the mythic passive to use more mana to give you like more of that heal and more of the regeneration, but it might not be that significant. Catalyst will give you 225 health, 300 mana, and its passive Eternity will restore mana equal to 15% of damage taken from champions and health equal to 20% of mana spent, up to 15 health per cast. Toggled abilities can only heal for up to 15 health per second. Alright, so now looking at Abyssal Mask, because Abyssal Mask is going to get changed a little bit. Okay, so Abyssal Mask will now be giving you 500 health, 300 mana, and 40 MR with 10 ability haste. You have the Eternity passive where you restore mana equal to 15% of damage taken from champions and health equal to 20% of mana spent, up to 15 health per cast. Toggled abilities can only heal for up to 15 health per second. There is the Unmake passive where you curse nearby enemy champions, reducing the magic resist by 5 plus 1.5% bonus health, up to a maximum of 25. For each cursed enemy, gain 9 magic resist. A champion can only be cursed by one enemy at a time, prioritizing the most potent curse. So currently, Abyssal Mask gives you 10 ability haste, which is going to be the same. It only gives 450 health compared to Abyssal Mask that's going to be in Season 13, so you're getting extra HP, which is nice. You're getting the 300 mana, which is also a nice touch. You're also getting 5 more magic resist from 35 to 40. Then there's the Eternity passive where you can regenerate health and mana, which is a good addition as well. And then there's the Unmake passive where currently it's 5 plus 1.2% bonus health, capped at a reduction of 25 MR. So it's still going to be capped at 25. Except now it's going to be 5 plus 1.5% bonus health. This gives you access to more MR reduction, and then you'll also be getting 9 magic resist per cursed enemy, which is the same as current. So overall, good buffs to Abyssal Mask. Maybe there's a chance that we could see this item pop up more due to the purchase of Rod of Ages. Cassio, Rise can build this item, gives you mana, and it also gives you a magic resist reduction, and it makes you tankier. So maybe if Rise or Cassio are going into an MR heavy enemy team comp, or where they need to build magic resist, this might be an okay item to purchase. But just be careful because there might be better purchases for more damage instead of Abyssal Mask, because it's more of a defensive option which has an offensive aspect to it. So just watch for that. It just depends on the game. Alright, so next we have Sunfire Aegis. So it's going to be no longer a mythic item. You'll be getting 400 health, 50 armor. The Immolate passive where you take or deal damage causes you to begin dealing 15 plus 1.75% of bonus health as magic damage to nearby enemies, increased by 25% against minions and 150% against jungle monsters for 3 seconds. Damaging champions or epic jungle monsters with this effect adds a stack, increasing subsequent immolate damage by 10% for 5 seconds, and gets 6 stacks max. Okay, so currently, comparing it to the Season 13 version of Sunfire, we are going to be losing the MR on the item. We are losing a little bit of HP. We are losing the ability haste, but we are getting 15 armor on the item. The damage is still the same, 15 plus 1.75%, and the ratios of 25% and 150% are also the same. And they're also removing the Flame Touch, which is the Flame Touch passive, where at maximum stacks, your basic attacks create an explosion around you, applying a burn to all nearby enemies that deal your current immolate damage to them over 3 seconds. And then you're obviously losing the mythic passive because it's no longer a mythic. So you are gaining more armor. So better in cases where you need to build armor against physical damage champions. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Sunfire plays out. We could just basically have to wait until gameplay shows up and go from there. Now, Turbochem Tank is also no longer going to be a mythic. It gives you 450 HP now, 50 MR, and 10 ability haste. Okay, so the active is going to be the same, 4 seconds, 40%. bonus movement speed. It will slow the enemy for... They're actually reduced. So currently the Turbochem Tank is being slowed for 50%, but it's going to be reduced to 40% for 1.5 seconds. The cooldown will be the same of the item. So now it's only MR on this item, no armor. So I guess it's a Sunfire for AD champions and Turbochem Tank for MR champions. But also the thing to consider is that you get this bonus movement speed in Turbochem Tank to get you closer to the enemy while Sunfire isn't. So I feel like those are things to consider with these item purchases, is like whether you'll be able to apply the active or the passive. Sunfire, you'll probably want to be close to your enemy, which has already been the case. So that will be something to consider. Now, next we have Randuins Omen. So it's going to give you 400 health, 70 armor, and the active humility is going to have a brief slow to nearby enemies by 55% for 2 seconds, 60-second cooldown, rock solid, reduce incoming damage from attacks by up to 5 plus 0.35% of max health percent, capped at 40% of the attack's damage, and then critical resilience is where now critical strikes deal 20% less damage to you. Oh, so this is interesting. Before, the critical strike chance reduction in terms of the damage was limited in terms of the time, but now it's basically just going to be permanent. So this is going to be a nice buff to Randuins Omen. I will be comparing it now to Frozen Heart in a future video, so stay tuned for that to help you guys determine when to go Randuins versus Frozen Heart. So we will see more about that. Alright, so now we have Spear of Sojin. Spear of Sojin, which will give you 65 AD, 300 health, 20 ability haste, and it has the passive Dragon Force where your non-ultimate spells gain 6 plus 10% of bonus AD from melee champs, /4 plus 6% of your bonus AD for ranged champs. Ability haste reduced to 3 plus 5% of bonus AD for melee champs, /42 plus 3% of bonus AD for ranged champs ability haste for immobilizing spells. And you'll gain up to 15% for melee champions, /10% for ranged champions, increased movement speed based on your missing HP, maxed out when below 33% health. So this item is back. This item used to be an item that like gave you resistances, and then it gave you more ability haste, or like CDR back then on your non-ultimate abilities. And now it's back giving more non-ultimate spell ability haste. So champions, I feel like that could build this item. Maybe Ezreal, who likes to use his non-ultimate abilities a lot. Fiora, Gangplank, and maybe AP Misfortune can also get value from this. The thing to note is immobilizing spells. So what is categorized by immobilizing spells? So immobilizing considers or includes Airborne, Berserk Charm, Flee, Taunt, Root, Sleep, Stasis, Stun, Suspension, and Suppression. So these are the types of crowd control that are under the category of immobilized. So slows don't count to this. So champions with slows as one of their old like basic abilities could gain benefit from the extra ability haste that isn't nerfed by the fact that it is an immobilizing spell, or the fact that it's a non-immobilizing spell. So it's an interesting addition. I'm gonna try to see what champions will build this item just by watching solo queue and just seeing where the meta takes us next season. So last on our list we have Ravenous Hydra. So you'll gain 65 AD, 20 ability haste, 9% Omnivamp. You'll also have the passive Cleave, where attacks and abilities deal 60% for melee champs, plus 30% for ranged champions, physical damage to other enemies within 350 units of the target hit. You have the passive Carnivorous, where you'll gain 0.5 AD and 0.1% Omnivamp whenever you kill an enemy, stacking up to 25 AD and 5% Omnivamp, lose 50% of these stacks on death. So it's sort of like an AD Medjai's. It does feel like a little bit weaker than like the AP version of a Medjai's, but we'll see. And then can only hit each target once per attack or ability every 10 seconds. And Cleave does not trigger on structures. So this is interesting. Ravenous Hydra does give a lot of AD here, 265. It feels like an AD Medjai's, as I said before. 350 range is relatively big. I mean, if Caitlyn's auto attack range is 650, just half of that, that's a pretty large range. Or basically half of Caitlyn's auto attack range. That's a pretty large range that this ability or this item gets, then you lose 50% of these stacks on death. So yeah, just gotta be careful with the extra AD. This item isn't as like strong as like AP Magi's in terms of like that aspect of the item. But I'm not sure if we'll be building the item for that purpose. I mean, it's a cool touch to have. But I feel like when we build Ravenous Hydra, we build it mostly for the wave clear, where there's the fact that physical damage is dealt in a circle around a target hit. And sometimes it's also built for the Omni Vamp it gives. So I mean, I guess there's that aspect, but we will see how that goes. That concludes my reaction to Season 13 Mythic / new items that are coming up. I don't have gold values yet in terms of how much each item will cost, so it'll be interesting to see how much each item costs and like when we could buy these items and sort of gain like a perspective on how we should buy these items and when we should and what situations we should. But stay tuned for future videos to come up, because I will then be going more in detail of each item and trying to compare them to help you guys find the most optimal item combination to take into your games when Season 13 comes in. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what you'd like to see next. Don't forget to check out my Discord server, talk about League or future video ideas. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.